crack of it.
Corleone, King, Itello. None of these hold a candle to the top Don herself, Mother London. But how did she get here? There was no Eurostar here 5,000 years ago because that was before we took our marching orders from Brussels. There's probably a bridge here though, which is just as good. Then there was no bridge for a few thousand years, which was not good. Then a bunch of Celts who were probably from Armenia or something came over to build a petrol station to smoke cigarettes outside of. This was the first small settlement in Brythonic Britain, later to be succeeded by Sonic Britain and the Chronic Britain. These bronze-bashing barbarians started selling their bashed bronze to the local Italians, who were moving mad on the mainland because they had lots of gold and big ships, which are really good for killing people if you can't afford guns. This was a pretty good deal for Italy. They got a lot of bronze without an expensive invasion of a place which had objectively worse weather. However, because of the indomitable British bulldog spirit, we fucked up this lucrative trade arrangement as soon as possible. One of the Italian donnies handling our bronze couldn't handle the banter and got kicked out of the country. Emperor Claudius saw that as disrespect because he's a pussy-hole. Then we got invaded in 43 AD, and the spaghetti mafia founded Londinium a mere 5 years later, which is also the quickest anything has ever been built in London. Like a paternity test, this came back to haunt the Italians 18 years later, when my girl Boudica, part of the NR2 crew from Norwich, came and razed the city to the ground, which started a long-running tradition of burning London to the ground, which Londoners continue to this very day. The Italians rebuilt it, but the settlement was still smaller than Colchester till 100 AD, and Colchester has like 3 people in it. Today, all good things come to an end, and the Italians were beginning to miss their leaning towers and not being rained on, so they fucked off. The Celts promptly fucked off too, leaving the walled city of Londinium to age gracefully into a walled ruin. Remember nothing? That happened again, this time for 400 years. Then the Germans founded Lundenwic, which was basically just London again, except it kept getting destroyed by the Abermander. Eventually, everyone got a bit sick of hearing Dancing Queen while having their homes pillaged and their skulls drank out of. So this German guy and this Danish guy decided to chill for a bit. Then Game of Thrones happened. Everyone suddenly remembered that the Italians had built them a whole city to live in and use like 800 years ago, so they moved back in. The Kingdom of England was founded in 927, and London had become the biggest, most important city in it, even though it wasn't a real capital yet. London instead got cucked by neighbouring Winchester, which had more religious vibes and was into that sort of thing. Then the French invaded us in 1066, dual baguette wielding their way through thousands of red-faced Anglos, to the point that not only do we end up with a French king, French also becomes our primary language at court. This is ingrained in the language we use today. For example, the term for prepared meat would come from French, like with beef, whereas the actual animal would be referred to with the British word, such as slag. The French concentrated power in Westminster as opposed to Winchester because it's where all of the money was. London was where everything was popping off economically, thanks to the shady Illuminati-style machinations of the Corporation of London, a company so old and mysterious we literally don't know where it came from. The important thing is the Corporation of London's ownership of about a square mile of real London furnishes us with the chance to give billionaires the tax breaks they deserve, as is our God-given right. London starts looking like a big boy city in 1300, boasting over 100,000 beaming boys and girls. Little did they know that they were also bubonic boys and girls, with about a third of them dying from the Black Death. The more people you have, the more extremes on the cringe-based political spectrum there are. It's just maths. So in 1381, Londoners had had enough of the high taxes their French rulers had been imposing on them to finance the war that they had been doing with France for some reason. And so they sacked the Tower of London and executed royal officials en masse, to which the monarchy responded by executing them en masse. Then the Tudors came and went, and aside from the fact that everyone had to change religion, London was going from strength to strength, selling a shitload of wool to their slightly less chilly neighbours, the Dutch. As the capital of England, London was the base for the early whiffs of European colonialism, and was also where the East India Company was founded. This corporation would later rule an entire subcontinent, but just for now, they wanted to find out where the Portuguese got their drip. London hit a $250,000 at around the time of Shakespeare, and not much happened around this time except that they were trying to work out whether or not theatre was satanic, a question which persists into the modern day. Britain was created out of the union between England and Scotland, with the latter having realised that it couldn't brutalise indigenous populations quite as quickly by itself. This meant that there was now a Scottish king in Westminster. Londoners reacted to this information by trying to kill him, and also demanding that Scotland split off from the UK, which is a cause that English nationalists today have sadly forgotten. Charles I asked the Corporation of London to stop being so weird and secretive, and to help actually rule the rest of London. The corporation said no, which is apparently something that they could do and just get away with. Like, wouldn't let that happen to me though. Politically speaking, London supported the rebels during the Civil War, which was really funny because the king literally lived there. The rebels ruled London in basically the same way as the monarchs did, except they outlawed fun things like Christmas and Kett, because they had a stick up their arse put there by a German man called Martin Luther. Aside from shitting on noble Catholic traditions of drunkenness and hypocrisy, this Jerry also stole his name from a black civil rights leader. Wow. Is there no end to the evils of Protestantism? He said absolutely not. British people really like celebrating Christmas and getting drunk, which most see as the same thing. So 11 years later, they got their king back, who promised that there would never again be a Catholic on the throne, but partying like one was still on the table. Also on the table was the plague and getting burnt to the ground, which London did again. And because they had to rebuild so much shit, the city started getting bigger and bigger, and then smaller and smaller, and then inevitably bigger again. Feds owe their origin to London's Bow Street Runners, established in 1750, which punished over 200 different offences, all with death, being far more transparent in their legal process than today's Met Police. They didn't need to be killing them, to be fair, as due to industrialisation, pollution, and the popular English sport baby punting, children in the 1700s rarely survived their 5th birthday. However, it was all fine actually, because the monarchy and a couple of corporations were making fat stacks, funneling wealth back from colonies into the London economic ecosystem, resulting in such innovations as more pubs, more powdered wigs, and more poisonous asbestos. London became the world's biggest city in the 1800s, mainly after waging a series of bloody wars with the Chinese, who previously had the world's biggest city in the 1800s, which was located in China. London lost this title in the following century to the Americans, but because British people are so scared of Americans talking loudly in public spaces, they decided not to do anything about it. America was also ruled by white people, unlike China, and the Brits were really entering their racist era. White women entered their jihadi era and exploded themselves in various fancy buildings until they were allowed to put a piece of paper in a box every 4 years. And wars happened and London got razed to the ground again. This time because Germany had got so racist and everyone was broke from war, the West realized that they couldn't logistically or ethically hold on to all of that land that they stole from black and brown people. At least most of it. As a result, the British Empire slowly shrunk into a corn cob while screaming, "I'm not owned, I'm not," over the rest of the 20th century, content to innocently exploit the global south through multinational conglomerates instead. Labour shortages at the same time also meant that some of us got to come over here, with the first waves of modern migration peaking in the 40s and 70s. Britain's first response to this was getting really racist. Then London invented punk music, got blew up by the IRA for a bit, and developed a heavily segregated housing and legal system, just like our idols over in the US, who consequently stole punk from us, then we stole drill from them, so I guess it's even. And that brings us up to London today. What connects us all to this disparate and confusing history? Is it the actual bricks of the past? Nice. Is it the infrastructure, also of the past? Is it the land itself, the Celts, the Dutch? To me, the only consistencies are various fires, explosions, and inter-ethnic conflicts. Because the actual London flag is shit, I've designed this new one. Secede now, sic semper tyrannis, they can't stop all of us.